Good evening, everybody. Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Melted Wax Podcast. I'm your host, DPZ at PC with DPZ, and with me, I'm so excited. This is like our second show because John and I usually have a show before we have the show where we chat about so many things, catch up. So there's like a show before the show that we really enjoy, the green room conversation, so to speak. But he's here again, and we had a wonderful conversation. I would honestly say, like, gosh, John, is it a year ago?
Yeah.
That we last chatted. Obviously, everything's changed a lot since then, but some things just really haven't. And I'm just excited to talk to you again and kind of take the pulse of the hobby with you amongst everything else that we can talk about tonight. So thanks for
Absolutely.
taking some time jumping on.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyable as always. And I enjoyed the pre-show. We're now in the after show or the main show. There's
We're
always
in
a
the
good
main show. There's a post show. I mean, it's a lot of great conversations there, and usually I get on with some wonderful people. One of the benefits of doing this for me is I get to know a lot of great people like yourself and get to learn new things that are going on within their collecting hobby experience, what they're doing, who they're PCing, who they're curating, different shows they're going to, a lot of the things that are happening within the show. And one of the things that we were talking about ahead of time was kind of how the landscape has changed a little bit. Things have become more affordable. In your mind, John, based off the wild ride we've been on, do you feel like the hobby has grown to a point where there's a lot of folks like myself who came in and just fell in love, excited, and taking part in it, creating stuff, doing involved, engaging? Do you feel like that's happened? Or do you feel like we've kind of went up and then we dropped a lot of people off and on the way down and we're kind of back to where we started?
I think it all depends on how you came in, and so you had a very collector mindset when you came in. You appreciated the cards for the cards. A lot of people appreciated the cards for the money. And I think that that's the defining characteristic that changes that. And that's why I think there's, you know, such a group of folks that have kind of left. I was speaking to someone the other day about this, just this notion now that when I was a kid collecting, like I did it out of the love for the cards
Yeah.
and the joy I got out of seeing them and collecting them and trading them and hunting down the ones I really wanted to find. And a lot of kids today, if you go out to these shows, if you go out to trade nights, if you go out to stores, a lot of these kids are getting the enjoyment out of the selling and not the collecting. They're into the flipping game where
Yeah.
they get into a card for $5 or into a card for 500 and then flip it for $7 or 700, and they get excited over the money aspect more than what that card itself actually is. So I think there's a bit of a change there in that set. And a lot of those folks have gone away. Fortunately, unfortunately, I mean that's that's up to each person to decide. Obviously, I prefer to really be looking at things from the collector's point of view, and
Right.
I have that enjoyment in the cardboard and loving what I have. I know we were talking ahead of time just about the joy of like even a Ken Griffey Jr. card, and why would a card be worth so much money, and you being able to explain to someone why that it's
Mhm.
not just a piece of cardboard; it transcends that. So I think a lot of the folks that came in for the quick buck, that a lot of folks got into buying raw, grading, and flipping. Like that was a kind of a common thing across the board, and the fact that the margins on that are much smaller or non-existent in some cases for that now, and the time turnaround, isn't enough that by the time the card comes back graded on a new Wemby rookie or something, you're not getting that money out. You're not getting your full grading fee back. You're not getting all those things. So I think a lot of those folks have moved on to other things that they can do to make quick money. Um, for the rest of us that enjoyed the cards for cards, I think it's as hot as ever, and now that some of that other noise has died down, some, not all, unfortunately, like the Michael Jordan cards I collect are still expensive, but
Yeah.
but like stuff you collect too, like
Yeah.
we really haven't seen the kind of the down that would be great to be picking
No.
stuff up on. But
No.
some of the other cards like that are just neat looking, or I've been picking up inserts out of Mosaic recently that are like case hits and stuff like that that are cheap, like relatively speaking for a case hit card. And that to me, that's cool. The fact that I can start getting back into these cards at lower amounts of money, and I can, kind of, I bought more cards in the last 6 months than I did in the last 3 years, I would say.
Mhm.
So like just to give you an idea of volume and kind of my attitude on it. So I've been able to collect a lot more in that way.
It's kind of funny. We talk about collecting too. how important collecting is to the hobby, the ecosystem of the hobby. There's something that I wanted to kind of peel back the onion on a topic, a thought process, and have this conversation with you because I'm curious because of your extensive history in collecting, how many cards you've possessed and how many cards you've sold, bought, sold, the commerce aspect of it, but just not so much about the making of the money, but just to kind of continue buying and selling within the hobby space. Because there are people that come in and they buy and they sell because they got to pay for something, and there's nothing wrong with that. That happens. There's probably all different aspects of that happening, but something that I heard on a show. I'll give proper credit because I love listening to this show, The Crossover. My friend Chris McGill made a comment on one of his. It could have been this last one or the one before. I can't remember exactly what show it was, but he made a comment about how there's something about the stewardship of a card that makes it really special. It's like you've had your time with it. Now it's time to pass it on. And it's something that I explain sometimes to my kids when, my son's always like, well, Dad, why are you selling that card? Like, I tell him, well, I have to pay for this David Robinson. I'm not going to go into all that detail. He doesn't need to know that. He has no idea. He's like, well, Grayson, it's time for someone else to have this card and enjoy it. Dad's had his time with it. I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. Now it's time for me to let someone else enjoy it. It's their turn to take care of this card now. And when you think about some of the special cards, these serial numbered cards that are very important. There's serial number cards that hold traditional value and demand within the hobby, or sacredness, so to speak, within the hobby. You can apply it to any card, but even those cards more so. There's this opportunity for you to, some people will say, oh, you're just trying to make yourself feel better about having to sell it to pay for this, or having to sell it because you need money for that. Or could you look at it like I had my turn with it? And now it's somebody else's turn to take care of it. And
I think so.
He made that point. I thought it was brilliant. I thought, man, we need to talk about that more because it's a whole other layer of the experience of collecting. It brings in this fellowship, this community aspect, engagement within the hobby of like not just one person getting to own it, but now I get to own it. Hey, and it happens within collector communities right now, like the Griffey community and different communities. Even like now, I'm starting to get to know some of the folks in the David Robinson community. That people are like, oh, I know who used to own that card. Oh, my friend used to own that card. Hey, I actually used to own that card. Or when I see someone in the Griffith community now that has a card I used to own, I was like, yeah, that used to be mine. I had that for a while and I sold it. And it was like this kind of like, yeah, we're both we got this akin now because we're both, stewards of this card, this very special card. And what's great about it is like that person might keep it in their collection forever. And I feel kind of good knowing, hey, a strong collector has that card, that loves it, that values it. Totally. It's in their collection. It's almost like I kind of own it in a way too. And
yes,
something about all that. I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but what do you think?
I talked about this with one card in particular, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I called it the card story. I called it being a part of the card story is the way I termed it. And it came up because I had a 1997 Upper Deck game jersey Tony Kukoc card. It was the only one I had out of the original set. That was the first time they ever did the game used jersey cards. One in 2,500 packs, impossible to pull. And Tony Kukoc, other than Jordan, was the guy you could get that was on the Bulls. And so to me, like having that card was incredible. I traded for it in the store that I worked in at the time, Mount Kisco Cards and Collectibles in Westchester County, New York. Someone came in, they opened a pack, they pulled it out of the pack and traded me for a Grant Hill Finest Rookie, which at the time was valued at about $80. And the game jersey at the time, there was no price guide on it yet. It had just come out, but we figured it was probably right around that same 80. So I had the card from that point forward, from 1997 on, up until maybe 5 years ago, when someone reached out to me online and said, hey, I understand you have this card. And I said, I do. And they said, would you be willing to let go of it? I said, no, it's in my PC. It's obviously something I've had since I was a kid, very important for all those other reasons. And then this gentleman said, because I really want to get it signed to add to my growing set of 1997-98 signed Upper Deck game jerseys. And I'm like, wait, what? Like that to me is like, that's an impossible set to make. You're already talking about cards that are so rare to begin with. And then you're going to try and make the entire set autographed, because none of them came autographed other than Jordan was you could get one numbered out of 23. It was the one of the biggest Jordan cards ever. But other than that, they didn't come signed. So he's going out. I said, okay, well, is this just a pipe dream, or like how would you get this one signed? He's like, well, there's a signing coming up. And so I really want to get a card for it. I said, and do you have other ones signed already? He said, yeah. And I said, can I see them? And he's like, sure. So he started sending me, he had Allen Iverson. He had, Penny Hardaway. He had all these
Wow.
guys that he already had signed in the set. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm thinking, I'm sitting there, I'm going, okay, this card's been sitting in my safe for how many decades? Too, all right, like 20 years in a safe. What am I doing? I'm not doing any favors for that card. This card story has kind of stopped back in 1997, and now it's just in my collection. And like, is that the end of the card? It would be so much cooler if that card could get reunited with Tony Kukoc, the guy who wore the jersey, get signed by him, and then be part of probably the only signed set anywhere, you know? And so I immediately said, look, it's PC, it's not for sale, but it is to you. And I gave him a very reasonable price on it. Someone actually messaged me after I sold it because I'd let people know that this is what I was doing because I thought it was such
Yeah.
an amazing thing. And a
Super
guy
cool.
messaged me and said, dude, you sold that way too cheap. I would have given you double for it. He ripped you off. And I said, no, no, no. I wouldn't have sold it to you. Look, it's a different story. It wasn't for
Yeah.
sale to the general public. It was for sale to this one guy. His name is Hardcourt Heroes. I think Hardcourt_Heroes on Instagram.
That's cool.
His name is Brandon, an incredible collection, and he's gotten pretty close on that set, and he's been building some other sets too that he gets signed. I've met him in person since. He sent me pictures of the card since then, but then I got reunited with the card after it was autographed at the National about 3 years ago. We met up, and so I actually got to hold it in hand, and he brought the whole rest of the set he had built at that point. So like you said,
That's
you feel like you're a part of it, right? You're in that
that's
club now.
beyond. That's
You know, like,
beyond. Yeah, that's beyond. I mean, it's
so
one thing to
cool.
just know the person has it and they went and did that and they sent you proof that it happened and it's a very generous, great
Yeah,
exchange. You're always going to be connected in a way. But for him to like connect with you, show you the card, let you hold it again, show you the rest of them. I mean, to take it to that next level shows that you
so
made the
cool.
right decision. Like it was
Totally.
the right decision to do that.
And didn't doubt it for a minute after he said the words, "I've been working on this autographed set." Because look, I'm a big fan of autographed cards. I'm a big fan of doing things that are out there and getting stuff signed that isn't already signed or getting really cool inscriptions on things that people wouldn't think of, like things that make it unique. And the fact that that card, like I said, it was just sitting in a safe, and it's a possession that I treasured, yes, but that card has a way cooler story now. How much would I have been
Yeah.
talking about this card? We would never I wouldn't have been talking about it in the last, 5 years probably one time
Right.
if this hadn't happened, but it comes up now like in conversation because it's just so, so cool.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I feel like there's stories like this. And folks, if you're in the comment section, you're watching this video, this is an opportunity. John will he'll jump in the comments and he'll comment below. Jump in there and tell us a story. If you have a story like that, let's light
Yeah,
this comment section up and light it on fire with these fun, cool stories. When you had a card and you sold it and you know who you sold it to, or maybe there's a story like John's where it was completing a set. I've heard stories before by other folks where they're like, I didn't want to let go of this card, but I knew it was going to go complete the set. And they knew that wasn't some sort of scam. I just wanted to buy the card. This person bothers you enough. They present that situation in front of you. Go, this is why. There's a scenario. They're not just trying to buy it to just turn around and sell it because you're going to sell it from less. I mean, obviously, there's people probably doing stuff like that, but you're going to know pretty quickly if you've got a good judge of character, whether it's a true collector trying to do something special with that card.
yeah.
How fun is that, man? That story makes it exciting.
It's so cool. And look, not every card is like that. Not every card I get rid of obviously has an amazing story like that. But to get to your earlier point, and I'm in the same boat. I said about 3 years ago that I didn't want to put any more money into cards unless I was taking it out. So I made kind of a pact with myself that look, I'm going to sell stuff in order to fund other things. And look, I was lucky because a lot of the stuff that I had in my
It's
possession
worth money.
had gone
Yeah.
up 5 or 10x since I bought it because I bought it so early that was now freeing up capital to put into other things that I wouldn't have been able to afford. To me, it's always a question of would you rather have the card or the money? And that can flip flop over time. Today, you'd rather have the card, so you're spending the money. And 2 years from now, the card goes up in value and you value that money that someone would give you for the card more than the card itself, then you should take it. Like I see nothing
Here,
wrong with that.
and here's a funny story. So funny, but a cool story. I bought a card from you like a year ago. It was a Kobe Bryant Topps Quick Start, really cool looking card. You said to me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And
Yep.
they sent it to me. I went and I had it graded. It had a special SGC deal. I think I got the deal from Cage and Andrew. But back in that time frame, like, hey, gave me a special deal with it. And I'm like, because I was doing content for him, like, here, I'll give you some of these free. So I used it to take that card and grade it. I graded it. It came back an authentic, which is interesting, but neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
It still looked amazing and awesome in that black case.
Yep.
And I was like, this is really cool. I thought about my friend who happens to be a Major League Baseball pitcher. He was for the Mariners for a long time. He married my cousin. He's the godfather of my twin girls. And his name was Marco Gonzalez. He was for the Mariners. Now he's pitching for the Pirates. He just got traded over there.
Amazing.
Loves Kobe. Huge Kobe fan. Major Kobe fan. So, he just big fan. He got a really cool signed jersey for a gift. He was so excited about it. And when I showed up there, I decided to give it to him. Gave it to him. He was thrilled. It's like, I don't know much about cards. You know a ton about cards,
but this looks cool.
This looks amazing. I'm going to keep it. And he kept it. And I think he has it up in one of his offices. He has it just on display there. It's sitting there. And he looks at it and he gets excited about it. And full circle, the only reason I got back into collecting cards was because I wanted to get one of his cards. It was like late 2019 or the fall of 2019. I'm like, I want to get a Marco card. I got to get a card of my buddy. Like, I used to collect cards back in the day. I got to get one of his Topps baseball cards. So, I researched on Amazon to find his card. Amazon, right? I didn't eBay. I wasn't even thinking eBay. So that kind of
optimized.
It started there. It was the first card I bought. It was like a Topps base card of Marco. It was bra for $1. And then I was like, well, wait, what about Ken Griffey Jr., my favorite player of all time? I have this card I have left over from my collection. Went out, found the David Robinson. I'm like, well, what are these two cards worth? And then everything started kind of going crazy. And then and off you go, right? So
yeah,
it kind of in a weird way came full circle. Now I get this card from you, and then I grade it and I give it to Marco. He loves it. It's great. He's like, how much is it worth? I'm like, I don't know how much it's worth, but it's exciting. It's a cool, maybe it's not super valuable, but it's valuable because of where it came from. It came from you, which a guy I love and respect, and I get it and I grade it, and it's a beautiful card. I'm able to give that card to someone else I love and respect, and it's just like this really cool, there's lots of different ways you can, right. That kind of stuff, it doesn't happen with every card because a lot of the stuff is transactional, right? You're just kind of doing this to do this and do this. But with these certain cards that matter to you, the cards that matter, the cards that are rare, the cards that are pretty hard to get, the cards that you feel like if I sell this, I'm probably not getting it back. I sold a card recently.
Right.
It was an important card. It's a Griffey red letters, 97 score, stand and deliver. Came in a plaque and all that. I never thought I'd ever sell it. I sold it to a really awesome Griffey collector. I know he has it. And there's nobody really has it. And then like and the minute I sold it, I regretted it. Like, I got to get another one back. I got to get one back so bad. I can't find anybody, I'm living that experience. Like, once it's gone, it's gone. You probably won't see one for a very long time. There's only 2 graded. There's only 20 that were made. I think there's only like the best collectors know there's 5 or 6 that exist. I'm not getting that back. Why did I sell? But I also sold it. I know who has it, and I'm excited about who has it because I know that person loves it, enjoys it. So just
the important part.
You know what I mean? So sometimes it's a little, bittersweet. Sometimes it's like, okay, at least I know who has it. But there's also like your story. That's a phenomenal story. But let's talk about that first set though. Since we love jersey, I love jersey cards. Jersey cards, I truly believe with Fanatics and Topps, one of the cool things, you saw it with the MLB patch, the debut patch. I've said this before talking to my buddy Filmington. I believe that game use, and this is going to be important though, see, because the game use, that's why I always, if I'm getting patch stuff, I always try to get it from the 90s Upper Deck. Game or exquisite game used.
Yep.
Like not swatches, and talk to me. You can talk to what swatches and patches. There's the napkins. There's the true name patches. Logo, real patches, game used. I think those are the future of our hobby. I think the importance of those artifacts is connecting you to the player in a whole different way. It's been missing from our hobby experience in the real way for a while. I believe that's the next step for the hobby, to take it to the next level. Yeah. And talk to me about that, and also talk to me about this 97 set. The 97, that's the one that where the Kobe has the yellow and the purple.
So the
gold and the purple.
The Kobe was a year later. It was the 98. I think technically it's 97, 98 was when the first set came out. Kobe wasn't in the first set. I don't think.
David
was in the
Robinson
one with the circle.
I had a David Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one with the circle. The Kobe was in the one with the circles. Iverson was in the game used jersey set, but not Kobe. That first year, at least
The
from my
first year,
record.
not Kobe. Kobe was the
Unless I'm
second year.
crazy, but yeah.
Keep
but
going.
but that first year, I mean, Patrick Ewing was in it. You had Glenn Rice. You had a bunch of big guys. That Tim Hardaway, I think. There were a bunch of big guys in that were awesome. But I think there is a bit of a misconception around recent year game used jersey stuff.
Okay.
Part of it is laziness, sure. Like you look at things and you see they're like not associated with any game event, whatever. Like people call it the Dick's Sporting Goods, jerseys, where clearly it's just a piece of fabric that was cut and put into a card. Some of that could be seen as lazy, yes. A lot of it, and this goes back years, not even just dealing with the recent times, but going back years. A lot of it's because we're focused in on the rookies, and the companies like Panini produce these cards so early that in order to get them signed by the players, they have to go through all these production schedules, the design, the production, and then they got to ship it out to the players. The players sign them and then ship them back. In most cases, a lot of them don't come into the office. So you have all of this process that's taking time. And then they've got to collate them, package them, and then ship them out to be distributed. So for the last several years, the only set like in basketball to have game used jerseys in it has been like Flawless because it
Right.
comes out so late. It's practically in the next season. So it's the only set that actually has time to produce after the rookie had an actual NBA game. So that's the part that's sticky. Now for years, dating back to Exquisite, including Exquisite, if you look at a rookie patch autograph in Exquisite, most of those are player worn rookie photo shoot jerseys. It was the happy in between where we're producing a card. We have to produce it before they actually play in an official NBA game, but we want them to have actually worn it. So, what's the next best thing to a game worn? Well, let's get them in a rookie photo shoot worn. So, we're taking all these photographs of them. Famous photographs are going to be used on every rookie card you see. You think about Wembanyama now in front of the black curtain. Everyone's talking about the Prism card now and laughing about the black curtain. Well, that jersey he wore in that shot, I would argue, is way more valuable than just a Dick's Sporting Goods, jersey, or even just a player worn jersey that he threw on for 5 seconds. That's the jersey that they wore. Like LeBron jerseys, same deal. They were the rookie photo shoot jersey when you see like some of his patches and those things. To me, that's cool. It's cool to be able to have a piece of something that was photographed so many times their rookie year that if you couldn't have a game used at that point because there were no games played yet, it makes sense. So I think there's a misconception there. A lot of people think it's just completely lazy and it's happened only recently, but it's happened way back when, and not just due to laziness, because it just physically wasn't a game in time for them to then produce the cards. That being said, then there's the difference between a jersey card and a patch card. This is something that came, this interchangeable term, which it really isn't, but it has become interchangeable these days, was because of eBay listings. A jersey card is a card that has, here, I'll get 2 cards here probably to show. A jersey card is a card that has a swatch, a piece of, kind of flat jersey, like call this one here. This would be a piece of flat jersey that you can see. Yeah, those Kobe's that you're showing there too. So those would be flat jersey, no stitching, no nothing. That's just a jersey piece. This is not a patch. Why do people call it a patch? Well, because when you're making an eBay listing, the other famous one is eBay one of one. You put things like eBay one of one or patch on a jersey card because it attracts people that are looking for the premium thing. And then they find your thing and they go, oh, it's not a real one of one, but it's still cool. Maybe I'll bid on it anyway. Same thing with patches. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, people started to claim that these were patches when they weren't, and it got more eyeballs on those things, and then people bid on them anyway, even though they were looking for a proper patch with the stitching. So a patch has actual stitching in it. It has some
Yeah.
piece of the, greater part of the. If it was my sweatshirt here, it would be some part of this logo. Would be what was a patch card if one was made, and the rest of this would just be jersey because it's just flat. Um, so I need to put out I put out an educational video about this like 3 years ago. I need to put out a new one to like really strike it home again.
I think you do. I think you do.
Like, because it's been so long, and now they really are interchangeable in the way that people talk about it when it's just false. Like, that was a jersey card you just saw, not a patch card. Um, and they used to actually write on the cards on the back, like, jersey or patch. They would literally have that language there, to match that, especially Upper Deck was very good at doing that.
Upper Deck was it. Yeah, Upper Deck. I feel good. Like I used to have one of those. I had a BGS 9 Kobe 98. Looks like it
Yeah,
wouldn't
the
be
98
97, it'd
ones
be
that are shown there.
98.
Yeah,
The one I was
beautiful.
just showing.
Yep.
That one, that's his first jersey card, though, correct? For
Yes. Yep.
him, that would
Yep.
just be his first jersey card. It's not the same as, let's say, it's not a patch card.
Right.
So if
It's
we're
a
looking at
jersey.
this, it's a jersey card, but this is his first jersey card. His first patch card would likely be a couple years later. Would that be his
It
first?
might be 1 year later, or they may have had a patch version of said card where they change the colors slightly and then they write patch on it.
No, you know what? I think I have one of his super patches myself.
Might be 99.
Yeah, I have a 99. If we're
And
doing the share
that
thing.
stuff is super cool. Like when
Yeah,
they
see, I
started
have. Let
doing
me
it.
get this off. We'll
Yeah.
remove this. This is the one I have right here.
Yes, there you go. See, and look what it says there. Game jersey patch. You see that?
Yeah.
Like, nice and big. And Upper Deck was great about doing that. And then obviously you have the serial numbering right on there too. The jersey version of that card was not serial numbered to 25. Like,
Yeah, it's
um,
super.
and
That's
so
a story
beautiful.
card. That's a Spinatron card. He held it for 10 years. He
Wow.
said 10 or 12 years, and I'm the first person. So that would be the last card I'd sell.
Yeah, it's an
I mean,
awesome
I'd sell
card.
everything else before I'd sell that card.
I love the design of it. You've got the nice patch piece on it, game worn. I mean, it's got everything going for it. It's just awesome.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wants to snag the Kobe's first jersey card because that would be kind of a cool one to have the first
I have
jersey
one back
card.
in the case here. If the case wasn't locked, I would grab it out. But I
Yeah.
have one in the case here. I can send you a photo of it afterwards. We can post about it. It's like a needle in a haystack to find this thing, because people didn't know what they were looking at. I got it on eBay years ago. But it's a Panini promo card that came out in one of those sets that they put out, one of the like the Cyber Monday kind of deals, one of those things. But Kobe did a television commercial it was the only Panini commercial he ever did, to my knowledge, and it was for soccer cards.
Oh, I think I remember you telling me the story last time. This is a good one.
And so this card contains a piece of his Nike shirt. So it's got the Nike logo in it.
Yeah,
It's got the Nike logo from the shirt he wore in the commercial.
that's
So
cool.
the only Panini commercial he ever did, here it is. Someone from Panini reached out to me and was like, "I love the fact that you are celebrating and understand what this card is." Because it's something super special, and was kind of
Yeah.
that history of it. He was one of Panini's big athletes, when he signed there too. And so that, to me, again, I know it's not game worn, but for me, it's actually more significant than just some random game, because I can tell you exactly the commercial is in. We can watch the video. It's got millions of views on YouTube, of that commercial. Like, you can pinpoint exactly when it was used.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of neat in its own. It doesn't have the basketball history that it would if it were game worn, in an actual NBA game, but it still has history that's, relevant and meaningful. So.
Do you love switching gears? Do you love the exquisite? I feel like
Their
the
product,
first year
yeah.
exquisite, the product, those game like that Robinson I showed you. I've got the Kobe.
Limited logos is my favorite. So, like, my favorite card in my collection is the one that was on Basketball Card Fanatic, the Jordan here, my limited logos.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite set of all time. I love it. The big patch, beautiful on-card autograph. I haven't posted it yet, and it's funny because I keep meaning to do this, and I I completed the trio about a year ago, and I still haven't posted it. This is what happens. I pick up cards, I get excited, and I don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't even think I've told anybody that I completed, but I have the Jordan from this year, and then I have the Rodman and the Pippen from 05, 06. This is 06, 07. But I
Mhm.
have the Rodman and the Pippen limited logos, big patch autograph cards as well. I wanted Jordan, Rodman, and Pippen. Those are my three guys, 90s Bulls. Like that's what I remember watching. And when I knew that they all had cards like that, I wanted to do it. Rodman, Pippen was not in the 06, 07 set like that Jordan. Rodman was, but it was a Pistons jersey that they used, which was odd. I never appreciate it when they have a picture of a guy in one team jersey and they use a swatch or a patch from a jersey that's on another team. I don't get it. I like just put him in the just like when you're
Yeah,
producing the card, you should have known that you were going to have a Pistons. It's just
I think there's
so
a
many.
99 there's a 99 game jersey Robinson that has a purple
I have
swatch.
that one. I have that one.
It's odd. I'm like, was that from like an all-star game or
I don't know what it was from. It's a great question because I
it doesn't
have the
make any sense.
purple
There's
one.
not even close. It's not even close to the color scheme.
Yeah, it's just odd.
I don't know. There wasn't a retro version of that. I don't know what he would have been wearing that was purple.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I noticed seeing that. I picked the one up, like a black one from
Yep.
that year, and I graded it. I bought it raw, I graded it, PSA 6. That's another thing too. PSA, when you grade stuff, especially with anything anymore, it's either it's a 9, it's an 8, or it's a 6. There's no
No
5s.
in betweens.
There's hardly any 7s. There's 6. It's like
Yeah,
the
I still
6 is
don't
like that.
grade.
I don't really know what grade this is. It's just 6. You know, I
Just
feel like
throw a
that's
6 on it.
that's kind of what they're just throwing it out there like it's a 6. I'm
I
like,
don't.
okay.
It's funny you say that too, because I still don't grade, but I'll buy cards that are graded if that's all I can find. And I picked up a modern Michael Jordan PMG red that was, out of one of the new sets that out of the 2000s, not the original. It's a retro, and I love it. It's beautiful, but it's a PSA 6, and it's a pop 4, and there's none higher. I mean, like literally there are 4 6s and nothing graded higher than a 6 in this card. You look at the back of the card and you see exactly why. The edges on every edge are just as screwed up as the original precious metal gems. And I was thinking to myself, like, I know you wanted to emulate the original set in this retro set, but couldn't you have just left out that detail of the condition being so darn sensitive? I mean, couldn't we have just improved on that one thing after 20 years?
No kidding, man. It is
Yeah,
interesting. Like patch cards are a little different. I
right.
put a little less weight into the
On the
grade.
grade
Case
there.
when I don't like the slab this is in, but one of my favorite cards. It's the only Kobe auto I have left. But
Oh, love
the
that card.
the patch though, and it's got a little bit of a string kind of coming off of the
Mm,
little things like that to me. And while the autograph's pretty clean and nice, and I already showed you the D-Rob this a
oh,
couple years later, or the year later, or whatever.
yep.
This is '05, and
I
this
have
is
Rodman and Pippen in that set
'04.
too. I don't have Jordan in that set though.
They're beautiful cards. I'm like, gosh, it's just gorgeous. And I love the game jerseys too because they have that significance. But I just feel like those jersey cards, to me, the jersey cards are pretty cool. They don't necessarily have to be
I agree.
autographed, but like just the actual patch cards.
Yeah.
Jerseys are cool. I like jersey cards from like 97, 98, 99. I can kind of get behind those because they're still new, and you don't have a lot of the patches aren't very prevalent. But I do love the jersey cards those years. But the patch cards I just feel like in the future here, moving forward, rookie year or not, I think, whether it's a hologram, whether it's something that ties it to a specific game or an actual event, and I can
Yeah.
go back and watch that and go, this card has a piece of the jersey of that player
There's
that's
no
playing right there on TV
reason.
as I watch him.
That's what strikes me as weird. And I have a hypothesis on it that I'll share too, but I've said for a while that I don't understand why they don't tell you what exact game it's from. I know in baseball they do in some of them, but and in basketball, there's one set called Stat Line that Panini did that tells you the game and then the whole stat line that the player had wearing that particular jersey. But when you buy a game worn jersey, I have a couple of Thomas Bryant game worn jerseys. I got some stuff, Carmelo Anthony and stuff from back in the day. Like I have a bunch of game worn, like full out jerseys, full size, not cards, but the actual jersey themselves. You get the documentation that tells you what game they were used in, and in some cases, like the stuff that I've gotten directly from the NBA tells me the stat line. It'll tell me that Thomas Bryant scored 16 points wearing this jersey. Like, so they could do it. Like Upper Deck could put that this jersey was worn on this exact date, and they could, so that you would know it was game dated when you got it. My theory on it is that these jerseys are bigger than we think. And like buying a game worn jersey and seeing like how long this thing, it's crazy. Like there's a lot of fabric. And it may be that in a lot of cases they only have one jersey of each of these guys, and that they cut it up, and in that 1 year that same jersey's in 20 products. And it might devalue it if they were to put on that card,
Yeah,
Steph,
that makes
what I'm
sense.
saying? Like this Steph Curry jersey was this one, and you look at it and you go, wait, but this Steph Curry jersey and this card, and like you would start to feel like, well, wait a minute, how rare are these? Like every set has the same jersey in it, the same game. Like this is ridiculous. What am I paying for? Like are they manufacturing 400 cards out of this one jersey? Like
Well, it would make sense that they are, though, if you know that, if you can logically think that way, because if we know how many of these cards are actually coming out anyway, it doesn't
yeah.
make sense. There's like 10 jerseys being cut up. I mean,
Right. So I think
I don't
that's
think that's
why.
going to
That's my
happen.
hypothesis. No one's told me that, like
Yeah.
definitively, but that would be, I think, a reasonable reason why. I still think they should do it anyway. I still think they should tell you where it's from.
Topps has a product in baseball. It's called On This Day. I used to have a Trout one. It had a hologram, and you scan, you QC scan the little hologram, and it would populate the game that he played in and what he did, his stat line, and the whole
That's
nine.
awesome.
It actually, so Topps On This Day has a product. I don't forget what year it was, but they do have a product. I don't know how many years they produced that product, but they did try to do that. Maybe there wasn't enough, momentum on that set to
I think
have it be a thing.
it's funny, but sportscards.com, who made Jersey Fusion, if you've seen those, like they really pushed the envelope there. They put a QR code on the back of every, we call it a card. It's not technically a card the way they've gotten around the legal on it. Not to go too deep into that, but they're basically, for folks who haven't seen it, they take a regularly issued card and they sandwich it between two pieces of plastic. The back plastic has a QR code on it and a description that says, scan this code and you'll find out where the game worn jersey pieces are from. And the front plastic has game worn jersey pieces glued to it that are then, like I said, put into a sandwich and then put into a magnetic case. And when you look at the whole thing put together, it looks like it's just a card, like a new card. But in reality, they've taken a regularly issued card for legal reasons. They don't have to get licensing. The card was already issued, and they've just made this little sandwich that looks like a new card when in reality it's a sandwich of pieces of plastic in the card itself. Yeah, it's a pretty cool way to get around the legal licensing issues. That's how they do it. But the cool part of that is that QR code, you scan it, they show you a picture of the jersey that they cut up, and they tell you exactly what game it's from. And so they give you the history there. And there's no reason, like I said, why they couldn't be doing that in these other companies, and
It's definitely scalable. That's for sure.
It totally
is.
Is
Scalable.
And we want to know, part of me too, like part of me doesn't want to go there, but like there were a lot of issues with some of these companies back in I know Gray Flannel at one point had some issues. There were these companies that had issues with authenticating things that weren't really authentic. We have to realize that like all of these card companies are buying in a lot of the same places we could buy. And so it isn't like necessarily like, that the players coming off the court and handing Panini their jersey. Panini's going and buying from the NBA like I would, that jersey. The question becomes more of the veterans jerseys before, like now there's a pretty good process. Like the NBA has codes on all of the jerseys and things. So you can track back based on those codes, what game it came from. There's like a lot of documentation.
It's stuff from the past is what you got to be concerned about.
Yeah. The stuff in the past, it's authenticated 25 years ago, 30 years ago, the stuff that we saw, unfortunately, with the whole card porn saga with that Jordan jersey and that they're manufacturing new photo match photos and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that, in all of these cases, both the jersey and in cases of autographs, they're only as good as the authentication backing, right? And so when you go today and you look at something post where it doesn't have any documentation, even an autograph, I know you were mentioning earlier in our pre-talk that you were sending out an autograph to get authenticated. That doesn't make it authentic when it comes back. All that's doing is rendering an opinion. You're going to get an opinion from a professional who's seen a lot of these autographs on whether or not they think it's real. It doesn't change if it's real or not. It could be real or it could be not. It doesn't matter what this person says. You're just going to get an opinion on that. The real
And it's really
change,
interesting because I'm like trying to
right?
remember myself. Where did I get this card? I don't remember when I got it, where I got it from. I probably got it from a card shop, right? And
Yeah,
back then, back in the 90s, I mean, and you look at the autographs online, you're like, it looks very similar to all the stuff I'm seeing. So it's probably real. If it's not, whatever. Either way, it's
but
not a huge
but
deal. But
even if
it's
it
interesting
is,
when you
like,
think about that because I don't even remember.
I have friends that have gotten cards signed by Steph Curry in person, send them in, and they don't authenticate. Does that mean that the autograph's not real? Absolutely not. It is real. Friend was there. He saw it signed. Like it just means that the authenticator, their opinion that they're rendering is, we don't feel 100% about it based on what we're seeing. So, like for me in autograph collecting, the witnessed authentication is key. Beckett does witnessed. PSA calls it in the presence. ITP is how they abbreviate it on their slabs. If you get something that's slabbed, if it's a card, otherwise, you get a certificate that way too. If you're getting a jersey or something, what that's saying is someone from their company was there to witness it being signed. It's not an opinion anymore. It's not, oh, that autograph looks good. It's no, no, no. I watched him sign that autograph on said
Yeah.
date. And those are dated too. Like in each of those cases, whether it be from Beckett or PSA, they give you the date that it was signed to. And that to me, like those are the only autographs I buy that aren't pack pulled because I just want to know. I want to have that. I don't want an opinion. I just want to know as much detail as I can get on the date and whereabouts of where that autograph was signed to know it was real.
And it's funny you talk about the autographs now too. Like, and one of the last things I want to talk about with you is, now Fanatics seems to have this agreement that's coming out with LeBron James where he's gonna start signing more things, and I think folks get a little nervous that are heavy into LeBron or even guys that are collecting some of the autographs they've gotten, and his autographs they're as prevalent as say Kobe's or Kobe's obviously has got a time limit on them, but it's a little easier to get into a Kobe than it is to get into
Sure.
a LeBron and a Michael Jordan because he's so signed as much.
Right.
So
They just don't sign. Yeah.
the exclusive they're working with Upper Deck or they're working with Fanatics or whatever. So I find it interesting now. People are concerned about that. I know our good buddy Cage had a whole episode talking about, the kind of autographs you want to target. I've done that. I mean, I've got the Exquisite, I've got the D-Rob Exquisite. These things are pack pulled. They're cards that are from a set that it was specific. It was an important set. I try to target. I have one Ken Griffey Jr. auto, and it's from the gold chicography set, hand numbered out of 24. Redemption. These are like, if you're going to have an auto, you want it. So it's a great lesson, I think, for folks that are trying to get in. Okay, I want to get an autographed card from a player. Okay, you want to segment it down to, okay, I want to get a pack pulled autographed card, redemption, better yet, and of an important set that's important and in demand to the collector base of that particular player. And with different, do you see that being a shift that we're going to be making when it comes to autographed memorabilia or autographed cards?
I have interesting opinions on autograph patterns, and I think LeBron exhibits what I expect to happen more. My friend Alex Connell Collection on Instagram pointed out something that I haven't seen on anyone else's profiles. I haven't confirmed it myself, but he's a good source, and I would assume that what he's saying is right. He's very big about looking at checklists. What he pointed out in a post that he made recently was that LeBron card, that dual auto of him and Bronny James's son, that's the only one. There aren't parallels like the rest of the set. So if you're opening that product, hoping to get a LeBron James autograph, or you are entering a break and you're buying in for the LeBron James, out of the whatever 100,000 boxes that they sell of that product, only one is going to have a LeBron James autograph in it, is what it sounds like.
Oh, okay.
So he signed that one card that you see in the video and everything, and it, from what Alex was saying the other day, the checklist doesn't show any other versions of that card in that set. So to me, that's that's where this should go, and that doesn't hurt the value of the past Upper Deck stuff at all.
No, it doesn't. No,
You know,
that
like
wouldn't.
so even if he does 20 other sets throughout the year, but he's only doing one card in each set or something, like again, stretching out that piece, it's not going to hurt that at all. Like you're not adding any real supply of any sort of number. My hunch and what I've said for about the last year, and I don't know if it was a COVID related thing or what's triggering it, but I don't, and maybe it's my knowledge around some of the card companies and what they pay these folks to sign the autographs and that kind of whole thing. I don't see why these athletes are signing cards in the first place. They are not paid anywhere close to what they're paid to do anything else. So, and so that's the part when you start to think about it, they get one sponsorship deal, they do one commercial for one thing, and that is way more than they're getting paid to sign cards, thousands of cards, for one of these card companies. So why are they doing it? Well, we would hope they're doing it because they care about the collectors and that, and this is a way to connect with their fans, right? Like, and that would be my hope is it continues because of that. That's my positive outlook. My kind of more realistic outlook is at some point, I mean, we've already seen it in the laziness of the autograph signings where they don't sign their whole name anymore. They just put initials now. At some point, it gets to the point where they just go, it's not worth my time. It's just not worth it, and they stop signing, and even someone like a Shaquille O'Neal who has signed for forever and a half and signs in every product. At some point, he may just say, you know what, I don't really want to come into the office anymore and sign the stuff. It's not worth it for the amount of money you're paying me to do it. And now, will the card company pony up more money? Will it be enough? Probably. I can't imagine if he got to that point that they could come up with enough money to make it worthwhile, where they would still feel like he was valuable enough. He's not the chase in these sets. People like pulling a Shaq autograph, but he's not like the guy you're opening packs for. So I could see those relationships falling off at some point where they're just not making enough money doing it. Now the LeBron deal is the exact one I would expect, where they're paying him, I'm sure, an exorbitant amount of money to be associated with Fanatics in general. And then part of his contract is signing a few autographs here and there,
So you don't think it's going to be this prevalent, tons of autographs, diminishing and watering down the value? I'm not talking about the high end cards that Josh and I talked through on the Grail series of LeBron, like these massive cards. I'm not talking about those. Those are always going to be fine.
I don't think he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do the same stuff you see kind of with Tom Brady, like he's going to sign a ton of memorabilia. And look, Fanatics is much more of a memorabilia apparel, outfit anyway. That's what they know. That's what they've done for forever. I think he's going to sign a lot more of that kind of stuff. And and the contract probably includes a bunch. And a lot of those contracts, like they have to sign a certain amount every year and they get paid out per year. And in some cases, they're signing stuff and it's not selling. That's fine. They keep it on the shelf for 10 years. In some cases, these autograph guys, Fanatics and the like, they'll warehouse that stuff. They'll get him to sign everything that he was contractually obligated to do. And then they'll warehouse, 200 basketballs or 500 basketballs or whatever, and then pull them out when he retires or when something else happens. Like they'll have all those kinds of things. So I have a feeling that's probably where the majority of that's going. Now, what it does is it creates a crazy chase in this product. It creates, another bounty. I'm sure we're going to see. I haven't heard about them yet, but I'm sure there's plenty. But all of this hype and excitement and craziness, like if we back up for a minute and just think logically, what should a card like that be worth? I mean, LeBron James has signed high school basketball cards of his for years with Upper Deck. He's been in countless sets, the collegiate, exquisite, all of that stuff, signing virtually the same kind of thing. And now he's signing with his son, who's not in the NBA yet, who may not be a great player, who we're hyping and we're talking about all these things, but like, realistically probably brings the value of that card down. If he was just if it wasn't a one of one, I would argue
Yeah.
like it's more interesting, sure, but 5 years from now, if his son isn't in the NBA, you're gonna go, ugh. That'd be like today if you had Del Curry and Steph Curry on a card, you'd be like, Del Curry's a great player and everything, but he's kind of pulling down the value. I'd rather just have Steph on the card alone. So
That's very true. Yeah, no, you're not
you
wrong.
know,
I mean, it's interesting. Yeah.
so
That's
I
looking into
think
the future.
yeah, so I think people everyone and there's this nature now where we're like programmed for it. It's ever since 2019 when you came back in, it's ever since the Zion zone where people are just waiting to be told who the rookie is, what
Mhm.
they're chasing, and that thing is going to go to the moon. And there's this attitude, it was LaMelo Ball, like it was all these guys, like it's just that over and over again. And this is that card, this is that ability. And these guys want so badly for a collegiate product to have that kind of money. Like you see all the stuff with the Tom Brady baseball card now. Like how crazy is that to think about, that something's going for hundreds of thousands of dollars that now we find out it's a photoshopped card. It's not even him in the actual baseball unit. Like they literally photoshopped his head onto another guy's body that you could get on Getty Images. And they're putting him out in a baseball product now that he's retired from football, and in like a Back to the Future moment where he inscribes it saying, if this doesn't work out, there's always football. Like you take this all the way back and you go, how much money should that really be worth?
Do the people that bid I mean,
Gimmicky.
whoever bid on that card, did they know this was a photoshopped picture?
No, I
That's
don't think this just came out recently. People were
I
comparing the photos, and in the last couple of days, I've been seeing this stuff all over the place that it was photoshopped. Even if it wasn't photoshopped, right? Like even if that weren't the case, which obviously it looks like it is, but even if it weren't, how much should it really be worth? Like, why should that card be selling for more than some of his big time like Super Bowl autographed cards, like stuff that where he really made history. Like I think back to the Michael Jordan baseball days, like because this is very similar to that. There were Michael Jordan baseball rookies that came out after he played in the NBA, and that people were all hyped about that. But he was actually playing then, baseball. So people like at least it was kind of relevant. This is like it seems like a big gimmick to me, but it
yeah.
worked.
It
It
did
worked.
work. It brought attention, but yeah, it didn't really. Yeah, I'm with you. It didn't really garner any attention from me. I think it's great. If it's something that kind of sparks some interest in the hobby or in buying that particular product and Fanatics cards, Tom Brady, whatever, that's great.
But does
The-
it create a pattern of fizzle, right? Because I think that's
I
I
think it
feel like we're shooting
does.
off fireworks here,
I
like,
think it does.
and then do people just feel like disenchanted? Like, does the person that spends six figures on that card 2 years from now go, oh God, why was I convinced into doing that? Why was I hyped into doing that? Like, I have a historic card that people all thought was cool, but at the time, and they were all fighting for and bidding on and talking about and hyping up. But now, like, I think in the future, you look back at that and it's just you see it for what it was. It was a gimmick, it was cool, but not six figures cool. In my
We'll see.
opinion.
Let's put it into perspective. Something that's not a gimmick: a Kobe Bryant autographed card,
Yep.
on card.
Yep.
There's a lot of them out there. I don't take the fraudulent ones away.
They're a
There's a lot
ton.
of them out there. You and I've
Ton
talked
in the
about these
Panini
autos a
years. He
lot.
signed a ton. Yep.
I've signed. Yeah, he's got a ton of. So talk to me about the long term value of those guys. Obviously, I worked
Yeah.
myself into an auto I feel pretty comfortable in, and
Yes.
that's a pretty regardless of
The
grade. That's
exquisite one that you have is a great place to be on him. So I always told people before he passed that I was always focused around the upper deck autographs. So the Kobe 8, people would call it, the old school autograph where he wrote just his first name and then the number 8 underneath it. That for me, those were more limited. He didn't sign as much for upper deck in each set as he did for Panini. So those autographs were much harder to come by. They in the market at the time they were only slightly more. Like you could buy a Kobe autograph at that point in time. Panini about $100 was the going rate. From the day it was pack pulled, up until a few years later, like right around $100. The upper deck ones are about 150 to $200. Were kind of there around. So there was a bit of a premium, but still in that zone. Now Kobe's like I'd say 800 to 1,000 is ish is like the floor generally on the Panini stuff, and then the upper deck, and then certainly the exquisite and everything is much higher than that. And then you get something that's low numbered or has a really interesting piece of jersey, or has some sort of kind of special set. I picked one up. I'm going to do a video on this eventually, but I picked a card up, and the reason I want to do a video on this is another whole discussion for another day, probably. But is I bought this card on eBay 3 weeks after the exact same card sold on eBay. I bought it from the buyer, so he'd already bought it 3 weeks earlier, and I paid 50% over comps, 50% over what he paid 3 weeks earlier for the card.
Wow.
Because the card was worth it. And I think there's this obsession with comps now. Like I said, it's probably another whole episode. We could go down that rabbit hole someday. But I
Yeah.
truly believe you need to look at these cards. And like I said, it's always that question: would I rather have the card or the money? And stop stressing about what other people are paying on eBay comps and looking at that as your only metric. And when you see a card like this Kobe, there's only 10 in the world. And I saw this card and I had to have it. And I still think I paid way under what it should have sold for, even though I was 50% over the last comp, which was, again, the exact card 3 weeks earlier. So we're not talking about like, oh, well, yeah, but that was a year ago, John. And, yours is a little bit nicer than the one. No, no. We're talking the exact same card. So,
Yeah.
so I think like stuff like that. I think Kobe, like in terms of value on those things, I think his autographs, obviously he can't sign more autographs. They could come out with other game used jersey cards technically in the future. They can win some at auction and cut them up and put into other cards. We never know. Like that could happen. We see plenty of, old school jerseys now, from players from back when. But the autograph stuff, it's done. Like what's out there is out there. That's it. There's not going to be more of them in the future. So I think it's something that was overvalued in the short term. I think it's a little bit undervalued now, honestly, for what an epic player he is. I think they probably should be a little bit higher. And I think that they go up in the future. I think that's one of the ones that does, especially on the interesting cards that are lower numbered, that have jersey pieces on them too, that are in major sets like Exquisite, like the one that you have. Like those are all things that are just great.
They come down to, like, you look at my whole collection. I probably have 3 Griffies I would have a hard time selling. And I think the 3 Kobe's I have, because I have your essentials and a BGS 9,
Yep.
96, or the credentials.
The credentials. Yep.
Credentials and BGS 9, a really solid 9. And those are the 3 cards I have of him right now. And I'm like, gosh, I'd have a hard time letting any of them go. I can't, it'd be hard to get them back. I mean, the credentials are, and
that's what you should think about, right? Because if you ever get to that point where it's that card or the money question, my dad threw that to me. So like this card, when I bought the limited logos Jordan originally, a few months later, I was offered significantly more for the card than I had spent, about 6 or 7 times as much as what I had spent on the card. And I really was contemplating it, because to me, like, I had just bought it for a lot less. Like the money would be worth more. But my dad said to me, like, after asking, like, are you wiring the money? You're going with they come with a suitcase full of cash. Like, how is this going to happen? My dad was the one that said to me, yeah, he's like, how is this going to go down? But then my dad said to me, like, the most important question, and that was, he knew I loved this card. He knew this is my favorite card ever. He knew that like, I hear people talk about Grail cards. I always thought, if you have a Grail card, it should be one card. You shouldn't have multiple Grails. There's just one Grail. Like that's, so you should have this to me was the Grail. This is the only card, like, I would put up there, like, this is the one. And so he knew that. And so he said, so if you sell it, are you going to look for another one? And without skipping a beat, I'm like, well, yeah, it's my favorite card ever. And it's like, well, then why would you sell it? Why would you do that to yourself? Like, yes, the hunt is fun, but like, will I ever be able to purchase it if someone's willing to give me that much money for it right now? Could I ever purchase another one? Could I ever find another one? And so I kept it, and I'm glad I did because I got offered way more than that later.
Yeah,
And
it's
then I
funny
still
because
didn't take it. I got
I
25
know.
times. We
I
offered
bet
25 times what I bet, and still didn't take it, because
that card is like it. When I see that card, I think of you because I know that's your card. That's
Yeah,
the card for you.
yeah,
And it's funny because that I can now, and folks out there showing that off, that the card I bought from Spinatron, it's probably not my most valuable card, but it's the card for me because it's the card I know I'll never get that super patch card back ever.
yep.
There's only like 2 graded, 3. There's only 24 of them. Those things are locked up. Heck, I think he probably has a couple of them raw somewhere. I know Spinatron. He probably does.
Dude,
Knowing Spin, he's got a couple of them. But and there's no way he lets that go if that's the case. But
Yep.
I think that in the story behind it, the whole night, because it comes down to that. Like, how I would never get it. There's other ones that are like even somewhat cooler, but that one's just so unique. Like it's just I've never seen it before ever. It's fatter, it's huge. It's a whole different thing. It's the biggest card I have. Like the slab is massive and it doesn't fit in anything. And you're just like, man, this is insane. This thing is like a whole different level of whatever. But you look at it and it's from 99. It's like this is like before Exquisite. So it's like this really cool patch that's in a card that's before Exquisite. It's like the first cool one, the first real patch. So there's a lot of like all that kind of going on with it. There's no auto on it, but it's just the card itself. It's so weird. The way it's numbered, the old upper deck numbering, the way they did it with like little serial
number in there. Yep.
It's just kind of interesting. And you think about that card. You're right. We talk about grails and, a lot of people talk about grail cards. I guess I'm kind of in that camp that likes to have multiple ones. But I do think that if you really did your inventory and went, okay, what's the last one that goes? Like the one you just, and it wouldn't be a Griffey. That's the ironic thing. It would actually be a Kobe.
That's
right.
No,
it's kind of an interesting thing. I literally just felt that recently, and I'm like, gosh, it's weird. I came to that conclusion for that card, but yeah, no, yours is John. This is awesome, man. We could talk for 3 hours, just so that folks will watch this. We're about an hour now, and I think it's been just packed full of great conversation around cards, around collecting, around sets, around the kind of sets, around patches, swatches, jersey cards, the first jersey cards, autographs. Just all these different wonderful things. Thanks for sharing a lot of your knowledge. I'm hopeful everybody gets a lot from this. I know that I always do. I look forward to these conversations. I think if there's one thing I think this hobby needs and Fanatics should invest in is having these tutorials, these videos that doesn't just talk about the basics, but really dives deeply into what's a patch card, what's a jersey card, what's a swatch. Like let's talk about these 3 things. What are the key sets that if you're going to start digging in and collecting a player, it doesn't have to be Kobe or Michael. What if it's Glenn Robinson? What if it's it's Gary Sheffield or something like that? What cards do I want to target for that particular player that are pretty unique and cool that I just don't think I'm going to find? I didn't know about Raise the Roof until I had a show with Spinatron and Adam Gray on Kobe, important Kobe cards. And then once I learned I went and got a Duncan, but I'm going to move that now because I don't need a Duncan. I need a Kobe. Yeah. So go get a Kobe, wait, save up, figure it out, find a Kobe someday. Now I know that set exists. Like 99 Mystique, for some reason, 99 Flair Mystique to me is probably my favorite set of all time.
That's gorgeous.
It was every created ever on Earth, on planet Earth, 99 Flair Mystique, whatever they're using for foil tech. I mean, it's the holotech. It is I have the established Griffey in a 10, and I technically had the Duncan, held it for a minute. Now it's going to go on to someone else to hold, but beautiful cards. The design front and back are just gorgeous. Like we need to talk about those sets. We need to talk about if you want to start collecting and going back and grabbing some of those favorite cards from your favorite player. That's, I think, the next step. This is the kind of episode that sort of launches it because we dive in. We did this last time a year ago. We talk about all these important conversations about sets, players, what to look for, what to think about, the journey, the steward of the card, the hobby, the experience, the story of the card story, like you talk about. I think that stuff is exciting, and maybe having more of those stories shared so that it lets people enjoy the hobby in a different way. Not so much of I need to possess everything and keep it. I'm envious I don't have what I want. versus I get to have this for now.
Yeah.
I know what I definitely would not want to let go of because it'd be impossible to replace it unless it's part of some amazing set someone's trying to put together. Yes, that would be, you consider it, right? But
Yeah.
I just think that this is the kind of stuff we need to be talking more about, and let's keep filling the YouTube, the podcast airwaves with it. Thank you for being a part of the show today. It
My
was
pleasure.
the best. It was a really good time.
You got
And
it, man.
okay, John is at the basketballcardguy.com. I can speak from experience. He's tremendous to deal with. Very, very professional. He takes care of you. He sends and packages his cards beautifully. You go to his website, you can find the cards that he'll just show you that he PCs, that he enjoys. You can just enjoy his cards. And he also has cards he has for sale. He has many different ways to sell them. He also sells randomly, does story sales. A really fun way to engage when you didn't think you're going to be looking at a card. All of a sudden it pops up. John's got it for sale. He's always looking for great cards at shows. Go check him out. Go check out his website. If you're into basketball cards, you have to check out the basketballcardguy.com website. You're gonna find everything you need there and everything you want to know about basketball cards. So thanks, John, for being a part of the show.
Appreciate it, man. Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right, sounds good. Well, you know what, everybody, comment below. Let us know how what do you think of this episode? You want to do more like it, and let us know what you think of everything we talked about today. Share your stories with us. Comment, like, subscribe, the whole nine. Talk to you later, everybody. Take care.